Hey everybody, welcome to Darth Tigger's Totally Biased Reviews, the show where I go and see something, I tell you whether or not I liked it, and we explore some of my biases, maybe have you explore some of your biases, and we try to figure out whether or not you and I will like the same things. And hopefully, even if you don't like the same things that I do, you'll get some value out of the review that I'm about to give you. We're going to do this a little bit differently today. I'm trying to keep up to date. I'm trying to make things better for you, and we're going to do this one in 4 parts. That's mostly because I got a lot to say today. Oh my God! So part one. Let's do the non-spoilery bit of the review. Part one, and we're going to explore my biases. I have a script here this time. It's sitting right there, so hopefully I'll remember everything. Um, so this review is on obviously Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It hit theaters last night at midnight. I have to tell you, I love Star Wars. You should be able to figure that out from my background, and people who've been watching me know this. So I first saw Star Wars when I was 10 years old. I saw it in the theaters, 1978. I've seen the original Star Wars over 100 times in the theaters. I've seen every single episode, except the first one, on opening day. I'm part of the 501st Legion, which is a worldwide Star Wars movie quality costuming organization, and I'm one of only, I believe, 12 people in the world who Lucasfilm allows to make money playing Darth Maul in public appearances. I'm one of the Lucasfilm Darth Mauls. I went through the entire audition process in order to do that. So, the question that I've got is, and we'll explore this a little bit, is am I predisposed to like anything that is Star Wars? Or am I too critical? So let's get into the actual review, and hopefully we can figure this out together. So, the first thing I want to do is, part one, I want to take this movie, at face value. It's a movie. You're going into this. The only things that you've ever seen are Episode 7 and Rogue One, and now you're coming to Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This is a good film. If you're taking it at face value, you're going in that way, go see this film. You'll like it. This has Disney production value. It's got the same production value that all the Star Warses have had. So I mean, it is a visually amazing film. It has excellent actors who are giving excellent performances. The story is basically solid. I've got one or two nitpicky details, but overall, it was absolutely worth the price of admission. Go see it. Now, if you like the things that I like, and you're willing to take the show on face value, you're going to like it. If you disliked any of the original trilogy, you might not want to see this, because this is very, very much in the genre of the original trilogy. Now, part two. Now, here's where things start to get tricky. I want to speak to the super fans now. And these are the people like me who can recite the movie scene by scene, line by line, and know it inside out, upside down, and backwards. Now, I'm going to try not to spoil anything here, but the real super fans might be able to read between the lines a little bit, so if that bothers you, be careful and don't say I didn't warn you. So, I think the superfans are going to kind of run the gamut here. There's a class of superfans that are going to love it, absolutely. There's a class of superfans, kind of like me, who are going to like it, but be slightly disappointed. And then there are some that are absolutely just going to hate it. And I think that is our fault. And I'll get into that at the end of the review. I really can't say any more without going into spoilers. So, part 3, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you don't want spoilers, go away now, go see the movie. This film was almost entirely derivative of the original trilogy. It wasn't the shot-by-shot remake of Empire Strikes Back that Episode 7 was of A New Hope. But what they did was they took dialogue, situations, and entire scenes from the original trilogy, all 3 movies of the original trilogy, and they jumbled them up a little bit, and they fed them back to us. In a nutshell, this movie is a 2.5-hour version of the original 3 films. And that's about all I can say. This is a second act of a 3-act play. The same way that Empire Strikes Back was the second act of the original trilogy's 3-act play. This act has to be a downer. Our heroes have to get in so deep that it looks like they can't see a way out. That's just the way Hollywood storytelling works, and kind of storytelling in general. The Empire Strikes Back was in the same position, and a lot of people have always said that it was the most depressing of the films. However, a lot of people also, in fact, including some of those same people, also believe that it was the best Star Wars film ever. Now, I get it. This is the 9th film, well, technically the 10th film, but we won't speak about that one, in this franchise. So, you can expect that ideas are starting to get a little bit thin here, right? Except that there are other franchises that have gone on that long that aren't seeming to suffer from the same kinds of problems that this one is right now. And again, I'm going to address that more at the end, I promise. But I lay this, at least partially, at the feet of the super fan. So, if you want to know what I mean, stay till the end and we'll talk about it. So, the opening crawl of this film was basically the entire plot of The Empire Strikes Back laid out in 3 paragraphs. Like, I mean, literally. I got up and walked over to my buddy, who was sitting 2 seats down, and I said to him, "That's the plot of Empire Strikes Back." I couldn't believe it. From there on out, they kind of started to bounce around a little bit. They lifted a scene from Return of the Jedi here, a scene from A New Hope there, a scene from The Empire Strikes Back over there. They mixed them up a little bit, shook, and I mean, I saw familiar lines that I could quote syllable for syllable everywhere. And in fact, so much so that I could practically hear the original characters saying those lines. And it was set up in exactly the same ways so that I knew that they were about to come. Like I could predict some of these lines that were happening because I had seen these scenes before. You've got, in this movie, a second complete rehash of other films. The other films that began this gold mine, which is Star Wars. Now, if I put that aside for a second, the writing was basically solid. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, they already know that the movies that they stole it from were wildly successful, but I promised I wasn't going to get into that again, or at least not right now. There were a couple of small things that kind of broke me out of the movie, and if I want to get really nitpicky with the writing, that a lot of those may only be me. Like, one of the other things about me is I was a career military man at one point, so I know a lot about the military. And people who aren't military people like me might not notice some of these things, but I did. And I have to say, what was up with Vice Admiral Holdo? This is the girl who took charge when Princess Leia was incapacitated. Now, she appeared to be, from the writing, like a tough as nails, top brass military leader. She's a vice admiral. Like, she had to have something to get her there, right? And they showed that in her character. She's on a battleship in the middle of a battle, and she's in an evening dress, like, the entire time. Like, where did she come from? When was she at a Christmas party? Like, when they started out the scene, they're evacuating the planet that they're on, and the planet that they're on is it's a military base. They're evacuating a military base, very reminiscent of how they evacuated Hoth. Um, Everybody else is in a military uniform except her. Um, that would have been okay. It kind of worked for one line. At one point, Poe Dameron, after she had spoken, and she said, "Oh, that's Admiral Holdo. She's not what I expected," and that kind of fit because I said kind of the same thing in my head, and I thought, okay, well maybe that makes sense. You know, she shows up in this evening dress, and she doesn't seem to be what he expected, and okay, they did it for a one line, I guess, but she stays in that evening dress the entire movie. Now, I've known a lot of generals and even an admiral or two over my time, and set aside for a second the fact that there's no plausible place that I can think of that she would have been coming from to be able to be in that situation in an evening dress. Every general that I know of would have sent some private somewhere to get them a uniform immediately, and the very next time you saw them, they would have been in the uniform which shows their command with their rank. No, this girl stayed in her evening dress the entire time. I I don't know. Was it just that they were evacuating the base so quickly that they wouldn't let anybody take baggage, and she just couldn't let go of that evening dress, so she put it on? Like, it makes no sense. Um. All right. So next comes Rose Tycho. Now, I find it really good that they're finally starting to cast characters that are female, non-white, not 6 foot tall, 120 pounds, and stunningly beautiful. They're casting what appear to be real people in good, solid roles. And Kelly Marie Tran was the actress who played this character, and she did an excellent job. At least with what she was given. And she was kind of a bit of a standout in an already good cast. Like, she did an excellent job with that character. But there was just one troubling thing about the way it was written for me. When you and again, maybe I'm being a little bit nitpicky, but when you first meet her, she's down in the bowels of this capital class starship, and she has a line that says, "I spend my days behind pipes." Now, that line and the way she's dressed tells me she's some sort of an engineer. She's carrying tools. She looks like maintenance of some sort. She's got, grease stains, things like that. They specifically set her character up in this manner. But in the final scene, she's piloting some sort of an attack speeder right beside Poe Dameron, just as if she's Poe Dameron himself. Now, where did she suddenly learn that kind of piloting skill? I mean, are they saying that piloting is so easy in this area of the galaxy that anyone can do it at any time? And if that's the case, why don't they have more fighter pilots and fighter pilot squadrons? Like, that kind of made no sense to me. Next, Captain Phasma. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Captain Phasma, except to say that I think they made a big mistake with her character. And the actress, Gwendolyn Christie, fabulous actress. She was tragically underused in this film. Um, well, very reminiscent of Boba Fett. Captain Phasma was the Boba Fett character of this film. Um, almost a footnote. This is a character that had so much potential, had so much fan interest, just like Boba Fett, and killed off just as stupidly as Fett was. Like, tragically underused. But again, plot device lifted directly from the original trilogy. Now, lastly on this part was just how dumb they treated us, the audience. Now, if you're at all familiar with the term hang a lamp on it, or hang a lamp post on it, it's a writing or an acting term that basically means that the writing was so obviously contrived that the characters in the story themselves call it out for you. And that's called hang a lamppost on it. And writers do this when they're either too lazy or can't think of a better way to deal with it, and by having the character call it out explicitly, they try to blend it in with the storyline as if, yeah, well, just coincidences happen. They did this almost everywhere in this film. They didn't make you figure anything out at all. They handed you on a platter the answer to every single question. Now, let's take the final battle. The final battle was lifted directly from the opening battle of Empire Strikes Back. This was the Battle of Hoth, like directly. Walkers land on a planet. They trudge through a white powdery substance, and they assault a rebel base, while the plucky defenders man the trenches and have some tower-like turret cannons beside and around them. Except this can't be Hoth, because this is an Empire Strikes Back. So the white powder isn't snow, it's salt. And they're on a salt flat, not a snowfield. And that's something that we figure out fairly quickly when they give you a close-up shot of the salt flat and the way that the salt builds up and the crystals of the salt. You can very easily see that it's a salt flat, and then somebody steps on it and drags his foot a little bit, and you can see the dirt underneath is red. So they lay it out for you very easily. This is not snow, so it can't be Hoth. This is salt. Now, you would think that would be enough, right? No. They then have to go so far as have one of the characters who's watching this, I think he licked his finger, but he stuck his finger in it, licked his finger again, and said, salt. Like, you couldn't figure that out on your own. They had to tell you it's salt. You think? Of course it can't be the Battle of Hoth. It's not snow. It's salt. Like, they really treated us dumb here. But if I'm going to cut the movie a little bit of slack, I will admit that Star Wars is now, and always was, aimed at 10-year-olds. I was 10 when I first saw it. George Lucas himself has admitted many, many times that this is aimed at kids. The first trilogy was built on this, and everything following it, the gold mine that we have now, was built on grabbing those kids when they're 10 years old and making a new generation of, or a generation of lifelong fans. The second trilogy was geared this way also, another George Lucas film, geared this way also. And most of the first trilogy fans hated it, or at least a lot of the first trilogy fans hated it, because it wasn't aimed at them as adults. They couldn't separate their 10-year-old mind from their adult mind. They remember being 10, remember being the movie aimed at the movie being aimed at them, and they remember loving it, and could not understand why the prequel trilogy wasn't also aimed at them. It's because George Lucas was doing exactly the same thing he did the first time around. He was hooking 10-year-olds and hooking them for life. And I just guess that 10-year-olds are a lot dumber now than they weren't in 1978, because when I was 10, we were able to get a lot of these things without somebody licking his finger, putting it down, and coming up and saying, snow. Okay, which brings me to part 4. It's all our fault. And, well, not my fault specifically, but the superfans' fault. The superfans, like me, who got themselves butthurt when the prequels came out and things weren't exactly as they imagined that they would have been in their minds from the memory of their 10-year-old self. Far too many people complained far too bitterly, far too loudly, and for far too long about the things that their own 10-year-old children absolutely loved. Oh, and the internet helped a lot. All of these outspoken 30-year-olds now, who never really grew up, now had a direct line, if not to George Lucas himself, at least to the world, through the internet, and they complained long and loud and at some length about this not being what they had envisioned. Now, I've been able to talk, luckily, as part of the 501st, I've had the opportunity, and through the conventions I go to, I've had the opportunity to meet a large number of the actors from the first 6 films. In fact, I've got there's one actor in particular who I can actually call a friend. And from speaking with them, and from what I've seen and from what I've heard, I can say with relative confidence that George Lucas is not a good director. He's just not. Ask any of the Star Wars actors, they're going to tell you the same thing. But what he is a fantastic storyteller. He knows what makes a good story, and he proved that beyond any doubt with the first 3 films. He also proved it with the second 3 films for the people that are willing to admit it, and the 10-year-olds that he aimed it at absolutely believe that. And to my mind, while my favorite film is Episode 1, as evidenced by the fact that I'm a Darth Maul. Disney itself was led at one time by another person just like George, a master storyteller, Walt himself. But unfortunately, not anymore. Disney is now a business, and make no mistake, their business is making money. That is the entire purpose that Disney now exists. Do not try to kid yourself that it is anything else. Now, the way they make money is through top-notch theme parks and films and. Like, they do what they do amazingly well, but their intent is to make money. And when people complain so bitterly and so loudly, like the superfans did for the first 3 episodes, Disney listens. And Disney is not stupid. They change. And this film, episodes 7 and 8, are the result of listening to that feedback. Disney will absolutely not ignore the chance to get another entire generation of 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds hooked on this money-printing franchise. But neither will they ignore the rabid, screaming superfans who almost literally demanded a brand new, total rehash of the original 3 films. And the amount of money that they made on the last 2 or 3 years just goes to show them that they made the right decision. So, if you were or are one of those superfans who complain so bitterly that the films must be what you remember from childhood and can't possibly be anything else, pat yourself on the back. This is your fault. And with that, I'll end my rant. So, thank you all for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and most importantly, share this video with your friends or wherever you can, because it really helps my channel to get new people in, and hopefully I can help a wider audience, because by knowing what it is that I like and don't like, you can watch one of my reviews, and even if you disagree with me, you'll get value out of it. If you don't like the same things that I like and you disagree with my review on something, then go see something. If you like the things that I like and you like the reviews that I'm giving you, I tell you that I like something, go see it. Hopefully, you'll get some value somewhere out of it. So, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.